Swag.
Welcome to Attorneys with Swag, the show you come to watch attorneys talk about the law, talk about how it affects them, and talk about how law existing affects you. I'm here with my co-host, Everett Hopkins, and our two guests, Mr. Biggs from Mr. Biggs Wines, and Peter Alizio. And everyone, introduce yourself to the cameras.
Well, I'm Everett Hopkins, co-host of Attorneys with Swag. I'm from Jamaica, Queens. I was born and raised. I'm a public defender now in New York. And Mr. Biggs, you want to introduce yourself?
Man, I'm Mr. Biggs from the legendary Soul Sonic Force, CEO of Mr. Biggs Wines.
My name is Peter Alizio. I'm a CPA and a tax attorney, and I came here to talk taxes.
Taxes.
Just in time for tax season, this
tax
first
season.
episode, this episode, second episode, is going to be all about taxes. And specifically what we're going to be talking about is how my L's from 2019 will get me some money back through tax deductions and my tax returns. And we're going to be talking about some more concepts of how tax law affects businesses. And towards the end of the episode, we'll be talking about creating a LLC business and how to maintain the separation between that LLC and my personal finances. So with that being said, before we start the episode, Mr. Biggs and Peter, you can give a little more extensive background, introduction to the audience.
Well, quick, you see them tax guys, we scared of you tax guys, man.
Don't be scared of me, man. I'm scared of you wine guys.
When I started in the music business years ago, we started touring and we made a lot of money. And we were so young, 19, 20, nobody's talking about taxes. You know what I'm saying? They say you got to pay your tax. All right, I'll pay them next year. I'll pay them next year.
It came eventually.
Years go by. Yeah. And I started working with my son, Mike, 86. I said, this music business, I got to get a job. So I started working juvenile corrections. I worked juvenile corrections for like 21 years. So first couple of months, we get checks. One check came, it says $7.
Wages were being garnished, right?
Oh my God!
And my legs just buckled up. And so I called him, and he was like, I said, but you only left me with $7. And she said, you could have taken that. I was like, damn. And ever since then,
oh my God!
Ever since they let me pay it off, you know what I'm saying? Ever since then, when tax season comes, and I don't deal with no Mr. Brown down the hill, down the wood tax. Now, give me a real tax person.
Dude,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Don't mess with the taxes.
I want to jump in here. It's more common than you think, because what happens is when you have a job, you have a W-2, your employer is withholding the money. Mm-hmm. So Eugene, he's gonna call me at January 15th. I want to file my taxes. I want to get my refund. Mm-hmm. But when your employer is
I gotta reinvest in this.
When your employer is withholding the money, you don't have anything to worry about. The thing is, when you're self-employed, there's no employer withholding the money. It's your responsibility to make these estimated payments, quarterly payments. And a lot of people, when they switch, they work, they have a W-2 job for years and years, and then they go out on their own. And they don't withhold. They file their tax return, right? And they owe 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand. And they're like, what? How do I owe all this money? I'm like, well, yeah, you do. You just have. So then we get them on an installment agreement, and now they're paying the back taxes, but now they have to stay current going forward. And people do get themselves in trouble. And you're not the only one, just so you know.
I tell you what, I don't get in no more trouble.
Yeah. You learned your lesson.
I learned my lesson.
That's a hard
Even
lesson,
when getting into the wine business, I just got in the wine business after I retired from juvenile corrections. I got in the wine business about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But everything, the state looks at you so hard, everything is, you can't mess around. There's no ducking. You know, you gotta pay them
The thing
taxes.
with taxes is like you can like it seems like you can get away with it for a while not paying, and then you think you're good, and then all of a sudden like in your case, boom, it just comes
they
up.
got you.
You know, so they're watching. Don't think that you're getting away with anything.
Yeah. I mean, part of this episode is about how they're watching. All right, so before we get into the nitty gritty, Peter, give you a little background so we can.
So I went to law school with Eugene. That's how I know him. St. John's Law.
Shout out
to St. John's Law, and that's how we became friends. And before I went to law school later in life, I'm turning 40 in a couple of years. I'm a little bit older than Eugene. I was a CPA before going to law school, so I have that tax compliance background. And everyone that was really good when you went to I see a lecture, it was always a tax attorney teaching the CPA, and that's kind of why I wanted to go. I wanted to learn the law, get to the top of my game, so to speak. And so now I'm CPA, and now I have a law degree, and then I passed the bar, so I'm a tax attorney. And that's all they wrote.
to get into a little bit of the gritty, because I actually wondered this, because I knew you were a CPA prior to going to law school. How has that changed your practice? What can a tax attorney do that a CPA can't do, or how does that change what you're selling, or what people expect from you?
So there's two things. One is a tax attorney can petition tax court, where a CPA can, unless they take some kind of test with the United States Tax Court, which is actually a big deal, because when you have a dispute with the IRS, there's a certain amount of notices that are going to come out. One is a 90-day notice or notice of deficiency, and when you petition tax court, you basically take it away from the IRS. Now you're dealing with IRS counsel, docketed appeal. It's a much better venue to be in. So that's something a tax attorney can do that a CPA can't do unless they took a separate test with the United States Tax Court. And the other thing is,
basically you bring a neutral third party into the conversation. Is that a fair way to describe it?
Well, that's IRS appeals is like that. You're bringing an independent party, I guess, so to speak. You're basically taking it away from you're bringing it to court. You're basically bringing it to court. Yeah.
And the court is supposed to be neutral third party.
Yeah. Oh, I never even got that, because you think you always settle. You always settle with the IRS when you petition tax court. Basically, I always have. And also, there's a part of the tax code where when you do petition tax court, you're in this thing called docketed appeals. It's the IRS appeals, but it's docketed because there's a clock. There's like a little line in the code where they're allowed to negotiate or give you more. It's to hazards of litigation, to prevent the hazards of litigation. So being a tax attorney, there is kind of some stuff I could do maybe that a CPA couldn't do. Okay. But besides that, a CPA, an enrolled agent, a tax attorney, all three of them could represent somebody with the IRS. So
so you're saying you're supposed to get a notice from the IRS first, right? Saying that you're in default or deficient.
90-day notice of deficiency is your ticket to tax court. You need this notice.
So then, in Mr. Big's case, right? So did you get any notice or anything like that, or?
I'm sure I got notice.
Okay,
I definitely got notice.
So I'm guessing that
you just
if
didn't take it seriously.
Yeah, I don't really didn't. But let me ask you this: what about the mores? Like some people saying you're not obligated to pay taxes.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Oh, so the people who say the straw man, you have a straw man.
Yeah, no, that's they don't. Yeah, that's
So you were an accountant before you did?
Yeah. CPA.
Okay. So why did you want to be an accountant at first?
I could get a job. I came out of school. I went to Boston University undergrad. The people that had a finance degree got to pay the most, but they didn't necessarily get a job. If you had an accounting degree, you basically got a job. And I started a small, mid-sized CPA firm in the city. Worked 2 years, became a CPA. Probably did 5-6 years in CPA firms in the tax department.
So, meat of this episode would be going over it's going to be my tax return, because I took a lot of L's last year. But that's what happens to any business. Any business, you start a business. You're basically investing in yourself. So I did a lot of self-investing. And while I do anticipate it to pay off, it's like planting seeds or something. I read that somewhere. You're planting a seed. I don't know what it is.
Sounds nice.
Sounds nice. But while I wait for these seeds to grow, I'm able to do my tax returns and deduct all these L's in a way that's going to benefit me in my tax returns, right? So now, before we get into it, because I kind of understand it, but I think a good place to start before we get into like business expenses stuff like that is like the difference between a standard deduction and an itemized deduction. Because basically, as a sole owner of this company as it stands, and the one who's taking all the L's, I'm taking these deductions using the itemized deduction, right? Is that fair to say?
Technically, no.
Okay.
You kind of understand.
I kind of know what I'm doing.
You're right now. You're a single member LLC, or you're going to be a single member.
I'm gonna be.
Okay, but so a single member LLC, disregarded entity, but you're not yet. So you're basically a sole proprietor. You're doing a trader business, not incorporated.
What's a sole proprietor?
Basically, you're doing business and you're not an LLC or corporation. So
Okay.
you haven't formed an entity. So so for your taxes, there's a special form. It's called the Schedule C.
Okay.
And you get to take your income less your expenses, and you're gonna pay tax on that.
Okay.
And that's a little separate than from like an itemized deduction or a
Okay.
standard deduction.
But I guess what do you call it? Special C? No.
Schedule C.
Schedule C, does it work in function as an itemized, like in terms of like how I determine my deductions?
Yeah, you're gonna basically get to take dollar for dollar your income less your expenses, your allowable expenses, and
Exactly.
we could talk about that too. I know you wanted to talk about the expenses and what you can deduct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So before we start going through the list of what I anticipate I'm going to be able to deduct, these are basically these are things I'm characterizing as business expenses, but for them to fit as business expenses, they have a certain they have to fit a certain definition. That's my understanding. So
Yeah.
can you go to the audience how that works?
We're gonna so in order to take there's a revenue code. There's an IRC, basically all the tax laws. So I think it's section 162, expenses, deductible expenses, and in general, an expense has to be ordinary and necessary.
Okay.
In like a profit motivated entity, the trader business for profit.
Okay.
And the reason I
You
say
determine-
for profit.
You determine that if it's ordinary or necessary?
Well, when you file a tax return, you're determining that you're doing, and then if it gets looked at, which usually probably won't, very few returns get looked at. That's when somebody looks at it and be like, no, I'm not allowing.
It's like,
that.
what was your logic for doing that? Basically?
And I get in front of the IRS a lot, and like meals and entertainment, they changed some of the rules, but like with a car, someone has a car and they're supposed to keep a log, they never do.
Yeah.
Meals and entertainment, I don't even fight with the IRS about that. Those things I kind of throw away.
Wait, so for a business car?
A bit. Well,
You have
let's
to-
say you're entitled to take an expense, and the two ones that are going to have the most, I guess, personal. A lot of people run personal expenses through businesses, and the two expenses that always a lot of crap, so to speak, is going to be meals and entertainment, and there's going to be and like autos, another one where they don't. You have to substantiate your expenses. So you're supposed to keep your mile log.
Mm-hmm.
How many people keep a mile log?
What? Doesn't that's on the odometer of a car? That's my.
No,
log.
but you're supposed to
I know,
keep that.
Let me jump in a little
Yeah.
bit, right? So let's say you have a car, right? For example, like I own a car, right? And the funny thing is, so I own a Tesla, and I don't know if those miles matter as much as a regular car. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, because it's a different
Not
wear and
much.
tear on the vehicle.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what metric IRS is using, but so like I own a car, right? Now that car, I use it to get to my. This is my new job, and I got my old job, right? If I go to my old job, that's not tax deductible because that's use not associated with this business, right? So then basically, to do it correctly, I would have to basically mark out when I'm using a car to visit you, to do work, to do site, like whatever work we're doing. We do most of our prep for this show in bars. Now, me getting to that bar, right, as long as I'm doing business, that would be tax deductible. But how do I differentiate the use of a car from business and not business? That's what he's saying is basically to do it correctly, you would have to
yeah, and that's the thing is when you get before the IRS, like on audit, they're not taking your word for it. You got to show them. You got an auditor. Auditor just wants to see like, okay, where's your order log? They changed the rules with meals and entertainment with the new Trump law, but in the past, meals and entertainment, you know, they want to. Okay, you took somebody out to a club or to dinner. Who do you take out? What was talked about? They want to see that. And like for me, when I'm representing a client, I don't want to have that fight. Like those are fights that like I pick my battle, so to speak.
Ordinary and necessary. Explain that to the audience.
Okay, so ordinary is basically like depending on every trade or business is going to have its own like I guess type of expenses. An expense for like a chiropractor is not going to be the same as a wine distributor. Okay. You know, a chiropractor is not taking clients out to lunch or dinner or you know they're not doing that kind of stuff. They're not traveling. They're not a salesman might travel. So ordinary is basically going to be common expenses for that type of industry. So something that they would
like skydivers need to jump out of planes. Not fucking
okay, if you had a sky okay, you're not buying plungers. But if you had a skydiving company, you know your planes. What do planes use? They use gas, and they use a lot of gas.
Yeah.
You know, so they're gonna have a huge gas expense. Where like you know what I mean? So that's gonna be basically the ordinary. The necessary is easy. That's just basically if it's helpful for the trader business. And the trader business has to have a profit motivation because you see sometimes the IRS is going to come in and say, no, that's not a trader business. That's a hobby. You know, you have to make money 2 or 3 years. You know, I love horses. I'm big into. I want to be a professional gambler. Dude, you're no professional gambler. You know, like so there is. It has to be like a profit motivation. It can't be like a hobby. And the other thing with the expenses that I want to tell you is, in general, like an expense. It has to be, you know, if you're going to take it that year, it has to be something that's going to probably be used that year. So if you bought a $50,000 car, right, you can't take it all that year. Technically, you can't. There's a Section 179 deduction where if you had income, you might be able to take it that year. But basically, if you're spending money and you're going to get the benefit of it for multiple years, you're supposed to depreciate it. So you capitalize it. So that makes sense, right? You're matching your expenses with the income that it's going to help you produce over the life of the asset, right? Make sense, guys?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. What if I paid for this episode last year? I'm putting out my last year taxes, or am I supposed to put on this year's taxes even though I paid for it last year?
So most people like so there's cash basis and accrual basis.
Okay.
So by default, Schedule C, you're basically a cash basis. So it's when you paid it.
That's my
is
hope.
when you're going to take
hope.
the deduction.
That's why I paid for this episode last year.
So a lot of people, what they try to do is they want to take it, at that December 30th, they want to spend all this money, try to get a deduction, and you got a $50,000 check income. I got it in January, which they've constructive receipt rules and stuff, but yeah.
Okay, so in anticipation for this conversation and learning more about what the conversation was going to flow like, I realized that what ordinary and necessary is subjective to whatever business you're doing. Mm-hmm. So what I realized is before we can engage in what's ordinary and necessary for myself, which is AWS, Attorneys with Swag, I should probably give you a kind of a clearer view of what our business does and doesn't do. Right? That makes sense, I think.
I think so.
So basically, this is a TV show, obviously. You're on it. But the TV show is presented in multiple ways, right? So we have a website. The website hosts a TV show. It's a YouTube channel, so you don't necessarily have to go to the website to watch it on the website. To watch it, it will be on YouTube, which we have our own channel on YouTube. That YouTube channel potentially, eventually, will be monetized and offer its own advertising income. The website, same thing, gets enough traffic, offer its own advertising income. So those are two avenues of income. We also have blogs that we host on the website, which will, separate from the TV show, would bring in its own traffic, right? Because of just the interest of it. Basically, it's the written word about what we're doing. The way I describe it is we talk about what we're going to do, we do it, and then we rap about it, right? And rap about it is the last aspect. So So we have a website in which we host our content, and we also provide content that's separate from the TV show. Then there's a rap song that is done based on every episode. That rap song is also hosted on the website and hosted on, it's currently on Spotify, but eventually, not Spotify, SoundCloud. But eventually it'll get to Spotify, and that will have its own revenue based on streams and yada, yada, yada. So what's ordinary and necessary?
You have to write off everything. You can write off everything.
Potentially, but
I always say that you could write off until it gets looked at. You know, I can write Mickey Mouse on the tax return, file it, and it might go through. You know, it will go through. Actually.
So that's what we're doing. So let's go through what we've done. So we did the first episode, and then in combination of wanting to just launch our brand and launched the rapper associated with our brand, which is Double T. We rented this venue and did like a launch event in which we showed the trailer to the first episode, and he performed the first episode's original song, Attorneys with Swag, and a host of his original music. And basically, not want to go into nitty-gritty details, but would that be tax deductible?
It sounds, yes. Just so you know, something you have to do is, you don't have employees, so you don't have to issue W-2s or have payroll or anything like that. But you should be, any independent contractors, like maybe like the camera people, you should basically be issuing them a 1099, and you have, I think, till January 31st. So like when you have people work for you that are independent contractors, is what you should give them like a W-9 form. They'll put their information in. At the end of the year, you give them a 1099. So that's something, that's just like compliance, something you should keep in the back of your head. Also,
I learned that today.
yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry, guys.
Also, when
We'll
you
get you your
when you get
1099s.
that LLC for New York, you're going to there's an annual fee, an LLC fee. It's an IT 204 LL. You got to file. So that's just compliance. And then the beautiful thing about the Schedule C is it's on your individual tax return. Until you bring partners on, then it's going to be a partnership return. What you just said, I would deduct that. I mean, that's your
Deduct that,
opening
yes.
part. Yeah, I deduct it.
That's what the song's gonna be. Deduct that bitch. that was my suggestion. He's an artist,
a
but
good title.
his right.
But you put it on camera now. Now he has to do it.
Do you think so?
Yeah, it's on the
Deduct
show.
that bitch,
It's
bro.
on the show.
I had some lyrics. I was like, she cheating you wrong. Deduct that bitch. No, I'm not a rapper. All right.
I had one
Yeah,
question.
you don't want the
right?
IRS coming down there and they're gonna listen to the song and be like, nah.
So, you're not deducting
Hey man,
anything,
if my paperwork is good.
Oh, boy.
So it's generally what I've heard is that it's better to start an LLC rather than an actual corporation, right? Because you're able to deduct more things with an LLC. Do you know anything about that, or?
I kind of do. So basically, I happen to be a big fan of the LLC, like especially if like a single member, because it's only one tax return.
Right.
Once you start bringing in like a separate tax return for the business, it's more expensive. The LLC is more expensive to set up because you have a publishing fee. But basically, any expenses that are going to be incurred you should be able to take them on both. The thing with like a corporation, if it's like a regular corporation, is a C Corp, and then you can make this special election called an S Corp. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So S Corps are people could save a lot of money on payroll taxes with S Corps, because I don't want to go too into it, but if you have an LLC, any income from an LLC is considered self-employment income. So it's subject to both halves of like 15 point whatever percent. Like when you work for a W-2, you only pay half and the employer pays the other half. When you're self-employed taxes, you have to pay both halves. That's an LLC. So any money you make in an LLC is going to be subject to self-employment taxes going forward, and any money. And another thing with an LLC, if you're a member of an LLC, you can't be an employee of that LLC. So if you're an owner of the LLC, you can't also be an employee. It doesn't exist. You can't do it. You get something called a guaranteed payment instead of salary. Now with an S Corp, you can be a shareholder, and you could be
Like an officer.
an officer. Yeah, you can be
That was a guess. Good guess.
Yeah, but you could be an employee of that. You could be if an S Corp. You could be an employee and a shareholder, and any income from the S corp is not subject to self-employment taxes. So what people do is they try to let's just say you have a company that's making $200,000 a year, and you're gonna say, okay, if it's an LLC, that $200,000 a year is basically all self-employment taxes in theory. With an S corp, you'd be like, okay, I'm gonna take salary for $50,000, so I have to pay payroll taxes on $50,000, but the $150,000 isn't subject to self-employment taxes. That's the game people play, and the IRS can come in and they say you have to take a reasonable salary. And the IRS can come in and be like, any dividends that you take could be can be reclassed as wages. Did I answer your question, or did I go way?
No, you answered it and many more than I might
Showing us
have.
the game, baby.
Yeah.
Mr. Big.
I'm drinking. I'm sorry, guys.
No.
No, this
It's not about making
this is
money.
what this
it's about
episode's
keeping
about,
money.
bro.
I keep money.
I won't lie, I got a little lost.
But here's the thing, though. With the S corp is you have to file. Okay, now the thing is, the S corp you have to take salary. So so right here, Eugene, he says, let's say he's a single member LLC, just files his individual tax return. That's it. With the S corp, you got to file the individual, the S corp, and now you got to pay 4/4 of payroll taxes. See what I'm saying? There's a lot more compliance.
Yeah.
So you might save money, but there's work involved.
Right, yeah. Whereas it's better to just pay the more money for the LLC and then.
Well, and not have to worry. I can
not worry
sleep
about
good
it.
at night, and
Right.
and you know what? Somebody forgets to do the payroll taxes. Like that's a problem.
Yeah.
You know, that's what's cool about lawyers with swag, man. Y'all have them break it down to us like we fourth graders. You know, that's cool, and all these people understand, understood all that.
That's the goal, baby.
You know, that's
goal,
dope.
baby.
Taxes
That's
is supposed
dope.
to be.
That's the
I don't
goal.
know.
Yeah.
I know it's only episode 2, but
Hey, I like
we
that.
out here doing stuff.
No doubt.
Yeah. Normally I would insert a
Lawyers
comment
with
about the
swag.
Bronx, but I got Bronx to my right, Bronx to my left.
Yeah.
I'm good. I love y'all today, baby. It's all good.
All right, so this is an interesting one. My good friend and colleague grew up with me in the Bronx. Urban Rodriguez. He created our website. He's an artist in his own right, and he didn't want to take payment. He wanted to take a espresso machine. Now the espresso machine costs money. Is I'm gonna be able to deduct the price of that espresso machine that I gave him as payment for the website?
Oh, you paid him for his services with an espresso machine?
Yes.
Oh shit, that's creative.
That's
But
what he
that
asked
loses
for.
value through the year. How old is it?
I don't even fuck. I paid $5 espresso machine and gave it to him.
Right? You bought a brand new one and gave it to him?
On Amazon, I have my receipts. This is my. So I have a business partner. When he tells me to buy shit, I'm like, find that shit on Amazon, because I ain't trying to save none of these receipts. Make it easier for me. So I basically paid for our website with an espresso machine.
If I'm preparing that tax return, I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
But I am preparing that tax return.
You
so-
are.
Yeah.
All right. Film crew for both episodes. That's good.
But you're going to 1099 them. They don't like to hear that.
1099. Yes. 1099 to one person operating all these equipment. All right. To get something out of Ev's way, because I know he was feeling about the box in front of him.
I like a clean
This is
table.
a business cards, a box of business cards. They're kind of a little shitty. I've been throwing them out. Jersey swag. One side is not
Can
that.
I have one, please?
Yes, you should have a many.
Pass that down.
Yeah,
The
take
whole box.
not a whole box.
That's like one.
Someone make that look reasonable.
Yeah, take all of it.
I would think these is reasonable expense. Try to share the brand. Yes? No?
Yes, this is.
Need business cards.
Making sure. This laptop,
Okay.
not laptop, Surface. I came up with this idea, and I realized to develop it, it would be very hard using my home computer. So I bought this specifically for the business.
Okay, so it's specifically for the business.
I bought this
100%
specific-
business use, right
That
there.
means that there's no personal material on there?
This is what I would say: is if there's personal material on my old job's desktop or laptop, this doesn't have a higher rate of that. You know, everyone goes on YouTube and watches YouTube videos at work. So I'm not doing that at
At the
any
public
higher rate.
defender's office.
I'm not doing that at any higher rate. I do a lot of work on this. A lot of work.
So yeah, if it's 100% business, it's going to be ordinary necessary. The thing is with stuff like that, listed property, it's going to be, you know, if you're using it for personal use and business use, let's say you have a car or something like that, where you're using business, personal, what you want to do, and it's like I do it with cell phones a lot for like small business owners that use their phone for personal and business, is you prorate it. You're gonna be like, okay, how much of this phone are you using for business? How much are you using? And it's an estimate, you know.
Okay.
But if it's 100% for business, it's gonna be deductible. Now, something like that, that's the question is, are you gonna you're gonna get that for more than 1 year? That's something you probably capitalize. And if you don't make money this year, you're gonna depreciate it. If you have a profit, you take this 179 deduction. So depending on how the things look at the end of the day.
Why would I want to capitalize it?
Because you get it for that thing is gonna last you for multiple years.
Okay.
So the concept is that you're not supposed to take the expense, front load it. You're supposed to take the expense like over the life of that asset.
Can you front load it if you want to?
So there's this thing for tax purposes, it's a 179 deduction, which is like, I think it's up to like $1 million. But you have to have income. Like if you're a striving business and you buy assets and you're allowed to write it off that first year if, it's called the 179 deduction. But I'm pretty sure that if let's just say and a lot of businesses lose money the first year, if you don't have that income, you're probably gonna. I think the right way to do it is you capitalize it over probably 3 years or 5 years, or whatever that thing is.
I bought so there will be T-shirts available at the premiere event. I think that's easy.
T-shirts.
T-shirts. That's good, right?
Well, what you're buying the T-shirts and you're just gonna give them away, right?
No, we're selling.
So,
I'm no sales tax expert, but like I feel like you might want to just give them away, maybe.
nah, we ain't giving them away.
Well, no.
You see what I'm saying?
No, all right. Oh, no, this is
It's something you might want to think about.
Okay, so I
Is
get
it
what you're
going to
trying
be
to say.
subject? Do you have to withhold sales tax or remit sales tax if you sell?
Oh,
these
okay, so
T-shirts?
because
If you just gave them away,
there was a cost that I wanted to deduct, but that cost is
maybe you sell a ticket and you give the T-shirt away.
Or we give them a T-shirt and ask for a
No.
donation.
No. No, the funny thing is, the funny thing is, no, you're right. So
Once in a while, I am.
no, so what's so funny is, actually, you're making me think clear. So people who come to the premiere event, if they buy a ticket, they're getting a shirt. So you're saying the ones that are given away, I can deduct those, right?
Yeah.
But then we're gonna have
Straight up, it says attorney with flag all over.
Yeah.
That's deductible.
Then we're gonna also sell shirts, and those sell shirts, they might not be deductions.
What I'm concerned about is, and again, I'm not I help people that have issues with New York State, like after the sales tax audit, or they owe money, or but like before you do stuff like that, you gotta just see if you're gonna start selling merchandise, is it subject to sales tax? And if it is, and you want to collect and remit sales tax, which is fine. It's not the end of the world to do that.
But can you deduct the cost of just having the items
Yeah. Oh,
produced?
so whatever the T-shirt costs, that's going to be a cost of goods sold or an expense, and then
Okay.
you're going to sell it. And you're going to hopefully you make money off of it.
Oh, okay. So I can deduct
So it's going to be like a net almost. Like if
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
$10 for the shirt, you sold it for $20. It cost of goods sold, so it would be a $10 profit.
Okay, but I can deduct the cost of making the shirts.
Yeah.
Okay. all
But
right.
I'm concerned that if you're supposed to collect sales tax and you don't, and then you might get away with it, but like
No. Well,
just-
I will collect
look-
sales tax.
Just see if you have to. Let's look
Okay.
into it.
So actually, these goes together. This is a projector. I bought this because, like I said, HR team is going to ruin this company one day. But until they get here, I do a lot of business meetings in bars, a large number of business meetings in bars. And what I thought was like I'll be more effective instead of just fucking popping up my fucking shit and just showing it to my peoples. I can just plug it in and just fucking grab a wall and then start projecting and shit.
In a bar.
In a bar. This is basically to make me an effective presenter to my team. That's literally what it is. It's just tax deductible.
If it's ordinary
I
and
think so.
necessary,
If it's
right?
ordinary and necessary, that's gonna be my answer to everything now.
Okay. It's good. At our initial launch event, in which we launched the trailers, we had a section in which you can like take pictures with the backdrop banner that we had, and we had it lit up by like a backlight, right? So it's right over there. You can see it over there. It's a big backlight thingy.
Oh, I see it.
Okay. Now, if I bought that, would that be deductible?
You might have to capitalize it in theory. It looks like it's something that you're gonna have for a while, but is it for the business? I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
okay, I mean, sounds
All right.
ordinary and necessary to me, right?
Okay. So now, what if I rented it? How would that work?
You're paying money, right? Yeah, it would deductible. You're renting equipment.
And
I see that all the time.
the
Equipment rental.
the fee I rent would be what I deduct.
Yeah, the amount you paid. If you let's say you rented that for a shoot for like $50, you'd get a $50 equipment rental would be deductible.
Okay. Now, my friend lent me that, right?
Your friend lent you that.
Lent me that. So I'm
Okay.
assuming they have nothing to deduct because she lent it to me.
You can't deduct something if you didn't pay for it.
Okay. Now my question is, and obviously this is IRS. This is for example purposes. Hypothetically, if I rented that backlight for $30, right, and I handed her $30, and then I deducted that $30 and got my tax equivalent return on it.
Got a deduction.
Got a deduction on it, right?
Tax benefit.
And then once I got that tax benefit, because she's my friend, I'm like, give me my $30 back. Would that be okay?
No.
Why not?
Because do I have to explain it? I don't know.
You do have to explain it.
I don't know why, but it doesn't sound right.
I know it don't sound right. But obviously, what I'm willing or not willing to do is not the point, right? I want you to explain exactly. I guess what I'm trying to say is that
Did you willfully to plan this out to take a
yes
a $7 deduction, get a $7 benefit? I mean, come on.
This is a hypothetical.
So I think this.
I guess explain the logic why that's wrong, so the audience can understand.
Because you're taking a tax benefit. And
you didn't pay anything.
At the time he paid it.
Yeah, but then he took the money back.
So
in essence, he didn't pay.
In theory, and this is something like you would see with state income taxes. Like if you pay, you get a federal deduction for state taxes. Trump had a $10,000 deduction cap, a SALT cap. So forget Trump for a second. Like go back to old law. You would get a deduction for paying state taxes, federal deduction. So you paid state. So if let's say you paid in $30,000 at 12/31, you're entitled to $30,000 state and local deduction, right? Now, when you file your state tax return, if you were to get a refund back, next year it would be income to you. Basically like a recapture.
Okay.
So in a situation like that, like if you're either gonna amend to do it right, you're gonna amend the tax return, which no one's gonna amend it for $7 or $30, or maybe try to recapture it, add it to the next year.
So
there's a
way to do what you're describing that isn't tax fraud, and then there's a way to do a tax fraud.
You could amend the tax return.
Okay. All right.
I wanted to jump in on something real quick, and then because when we're talking about I don't know if I brought it up, but also so we did ordinary and necessary. That's business expenses, right? So you have your income less your expenses. To take a loss, right? To take a loss, there's three. I'm just gonna say one of them, but basically, there's limitations. So if you had a loss, you might not be entitled to take it on your individual return. So there's a basis limitation. So and there's passive activity limitation. So if you had a loss, is passive activity loss. You could only take it against passive activity income, basically. I'm not gonna go too into it. But the one thing I want to bring up here is at risk. So you could only take a loss if you actually lost the money. So if me and you were partners, right? No, I don't want to be partners with you. You drink too much. Me and the wine guy are partners, right?
Good right now.
Yeah, we're partners, right?
Right.
He's the money guy, right? He's gonna invest all the money. We're 50-50, right? And I'm the one doing whatever what are we doing? Whatever.
Making shirts.
Like, whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
So if he's the money guy, let's just say the first year we lost. It's a partnership. Per the partnership agreement, 50% of the loss goes to me, 50% of the loss goes to him. Can I take that 50% loss?
I don't know.
No. Well, I didn't lose any money. I wasn't at risk. He's the money guy. So you see what I'm saying? You can't take a loss if you didn't have any skin in the game. So there's three things. You got passive activity limitation, basis limitation, and at risk. So I just wanted to know about that at risk.
At risk means that. So for example, I'm hovering in the 20s, right? Those 20s gotta be money that has to be my skin. Like it's gotta be my credit cards, my checking account.
You spend the money.
I spent it.
Yeah.
Personally.
You're
the
gonna
one at
lose
risk.
it. You're on the hook for it.
Yeah.
Technically, you don't have to spend. It could be like a loan, but like you're on the hook for that loan.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like he can't put all the money in, and I'm getting a deduction for money.
To make it AWS, Ev is as invested in the success of his enterprise as I am.
Right.
But he didn't spend no money.
Exactly.
So if you have the loss,
I can't-
he's
I
not
can't.
gonna. What would happen is basically the law. If you guys all have partners, you're gonna have a partnership agreement. You're gonna do the return, whatever the partnership agreement is. That's how the income or loss is gonna be split, right? So you guys are gonna get this. It's called a Form K1. So if you two are just the two partners, you have a $100 loss. It's 50-50. You get a K1 with a $50 loss. You get a K1 with a $50 loss. If he didn't put any money in, it would basically like be suspended. It would basically it's going to be carried over to the next year. And then when you actually do put money in, or actually there's income,
Then
it'll get yeah.
Got you.
Okay. All right. The fun part.
That was good.
These sunglasses.
Here we go.
I
Not
like
deductible.
we're not there
I don't
yet.
even know what you're doing.
See, the funny thing is, Peter, hubris is the fall. Because I'm going to convince you that these are deductible.
Go ahead, convince me.
Called the punchline. So these are deductible.
Oh,
These
you
sunglasses
good,
right
man.
here. Sunglasses right here.
Deductible.
Let me just do the whole thing. And this, what is it called? I forgot.
I don't know what the fuck.
Everyone knows what this is called, but I keep forgetting.
I don't know what that
it's
is.
a certain fabric. It doesn't matter.
The scarf.
It's
It's a scarf.
it's the fabric. All right. So these two items, right? The way I look at it, I got these in Barcelona. I don't know if that actually matters to the tax. I spent money. I spent US dollars though. Well, converted. You know what I mean? So the way I look at it is that I brought these items
Yes.
for business morale. Right?
Okay.
They help me feel swaggy, which is what I need to create.
It is attorneys with swag, but no.
No, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. So these help me establish business morale, which is a fundamental aspect of me doing this TV show and getting into the mindset of the writing and yada yada yada. Does that count as a business expense?
The only stuff I see when it comes to clothing is a uniform is deductible.
Okay.
Is that your uniform?
No, it's not.
I don't think it's deductible.
No. Okay, now, okay. So, based on the conversation we just had, it's not deductible. Now, this is a TV show, and I just made this a prop that I used in the TV show. Does that make it deductible?
So, no. Ready for this? Ready for this?
Yeah.
Remember we talked about ordinary and necessary, and ordinary and necessary, it depended on what type of trade or business you're in.
Yes.
Now we're going to the TV. You know,
Yeah.
you need a
How many
wardrobe,
episodes do
right?
I have to wear these in to deduct them?
I don't know.
How often do I have to bring them up?
I mean,
'Cause I love these sunglasses.
when are you gonna be on Fox or NBC? I mean, like,
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If he
I
wears
think
it
it
every
matters
single
a
show,
little bit.
if it's just on YouTube, if you wear it every single show, sounds like a prop to me.
see that, and that's
It's
why
a prop
lawyers
now.
get paid the big bucks to try to argue that. But you have more of a leg to stand on if you're a TV show and it's a prop.
It's a prop. Shit ain't just a prop. It's fucking promotion now.
Hey, what's the fallback?
So yeah, if I were to like hang out with you like next weekend,
Yeah.
you're not rocking those
Yeah,
glasses.
you would be disappointed. People want a selfie. They want selfies with these bad boys. Facts. All day facts. All right.
What'd you say? Hey, it's good until it's not, man.
And,
You know?
and
Deducted.
that just I'm telling you, there's really truth in that. Like
Yeah.
people, you know, what happens is you have these people that they take these huge, they get all these. Oh, their accountant's the greatest accountant in the world. The truth of the matter is their accountant's horrible. And then when they get audited, and all of a sudden the person looks at it and they're like, wow, this is horrible. And then they don't stop there. They're like, I want to see the prior year return.
Yeah,
and they go
yeah.
back and like it's all wrong. Now all of a sudden the accountant isn't good, but you got to wait with it for 5-10 years. Like the thing is, it's like when you file a return, you're voluntary. I use the word voluntary, like because you have to file, but you're making that deduct.
You're self-governing, basically.
Yeah,
Like,
you're making that
determination.
deduction. Like,
Right.
yeah, this is deductible, and they audit very few returns. I mean, you might get a notice, a matching notice, because somebody's.
I might be
1099.
making it hot with this episode. I might be getting deducted.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be super hot.
Might be making it a little hot.
They're gonna come for us next year.
A little hot. It's cool. I'm doing it for the
It's
people.
good until it's not. And like that's gonna be the catch.
That's the name of the show.
All right, now it's time for laws you don't know, you should know. And on this episode, I'm a little bit more prepared than last time. Feel ready. Shit, gotta switch. What we're going to is what you're required to do if you are stopped by the police. And So if you are stopped by the police, you're actually required to only do 3 things. It's name, address, and destination. Those are the only things that they can ask you and you're required to answer. And I actually might be wrong with that because it might be just be the verb. Basically,
I think it's just name and address. Yeah.
Basically, you have to be able to identify yourself to them, right? Mm-hmm. And those are your only requirements to ever provide to the police, right? And that, in fact, there are actually more regulations on what a police can ask you as compared to what you are required to answer. And there's only one thing that governs what you are required and not required to answer the police, and that's the Fifth Amendment. And included in the Fifth Amendment is laws against self-incrimination. It is, our Constitution was amended by the Fifth Amendment, right? So it's a part of our Constitution. It basically says that you are not required to self-incriminate you, right? And the cutout is that identifying yourself to the police by name and where you live, right? That's not incriminating. That's just baseline information. If there's a warrant out for your arrest, the police need to know that. If you're a suspect for a crime, the police need to know that. So you're required to provide those baseline information. After that, every other question is voluntary. So when a cop says, who are these people in the car? Or do you have a gun on you? Or do you have a knife on you? Or are you carrying any drugs? Or have you been drinking, right? Mm-hmm. That question does not have to be responded to with an answer. It can simply be, I choose not to answer that question. It could be silence. It can be.
I feel like it's not. I mean, I don't do any criminal stuff at all, but isn't that like probable cause? Like you tell a cop, they ask you, "Have you been drinking?" And you're like, "I choose not to answer that." I feel like.
So
No.
To them, it might be. But
no. It's all because
so
procedures law mixed. So actually, I'm gonna give you a hypo. After this, I wanted to lay the foundations. It all becomes a mixture of law and social dynamics, right? Because socially speaking, if someone asks you a question, it becomes very hard to just remain silent, right? Because if someone, like a cop asks, so for example, a cop asks you where you're coming from, you were just at a party, you don't think there's anything wrong, with the concept that you just came from a party, mm-hmm. So you say, I just came from a party. But if you're driving, right, the fact that you just came from a party can raise their level of suspicion that you are drinking. Now, like I said before, when I started in the beginning, they're actually very specific, at least in New York City, there's actually the 4 levels of street encounters. So I'm going to explain that because I think it's important. A cop cannot approach a citizen of New York without an objective, credible reason to approach them, right? Like a cop can't just be walking up. Now a cop can say, "Hey, how you doing? Good morning." But if he wants to walk up to you and go, "Hey, what's your name? What are you doing here?" He can only do that with an objective, credible reason to do it. Now, what it takes to get there, right? Your car's swerving, that's an objective, credible reason to pull you over or approach you.
If you're like, if it's easier to show what it's not, right? So if a guy's walking down the street and a cop says, "Oh, this guy looks suspicious," well, that's not, objective and it's not credible. Like, what about it made him suspicious? And
exactly.
then, you just don't know what it is. Like, oh, well, he had his head down, he was walking with his hands in his pocket. It's like, that's not.
He had a hoodie on, right?
Yeah, exactly. So stuff like
that.
That's
hoodies
not
are fine.
Before they ask you any questions, do they have to tell you why they stopped you?
No. So that's what makes it all more complicated, right? So now they could approach you, they can ask you back, like, hey, they can basically ask you like non-evasive questions like, "Hey, where you going? What's your name?" Right? Mm-hmm. Now, if they have more than that, they have for example, so I'll give you an example. They get a bulletin or fucking on their radio that a robbery just happened. There's someone with a black hoodie, black pants, who just robbed somebody, right? Now they have they have anywhere from founded suspicion, which is level 2, or even reasonable suspicion, to basically approach anybody that they see matching that description and engage with them to a certain level, right? Right. Now, founded suspicion, which is level 2, basically allows them to approach a person that they have that suspicion with and ask them like, "Hey, did you just come from this direction?" Because that's where they know the crime came from. You answer that question, which you're not required to, and that just allows them to like narrow down whether
it could be you
exactly
did the robbery or not.
They're conducting an investigation, right? the whole point of these metrics is that they can't just walk around asking everybody, fucking up everyone's day, and just throw a dragnet over a community in a way that it's not appropriate given the circumstances. So founding suspicion is basically one level up, and it basically it allows them to ask pointed questions. Included in those pointed questions is, can I search you? Right? Level 1, they can't even ask you to search you. Level 2, they can ask you to search you. Now, the important thing about these distinctions is that at level 1 and level 2, they cannot search you. Right? A lot of people don't understand that when they're approached by cops and a cop goes, hey, do you mind if I search you? You can say, fuck out of here. No.
Yeah, I wouldn't
You
do
can
that.
say no.
You can say no.
I say
There's
no.
a reason why it's phrased as a question, right? The next level is what's called reasonable suspicion, right? It's just before I'm capable to arrest you. And reasonable suspicion is basically, I've narrowed down that you are the suspect to a crime, or you're giving me enough information that I really feel like I have enough to arrest you, but I don't. And under this level of suspicion, what they can do is they can stop you, they can detain you. They can't arrest you, but they can detain you for the purposes of clarifying that suspicion.
I guess an example of level 3, another example would be like with the robbery case, right? So say if they found there was a 911 call and the person said that I've just been robbed. It's a guy with a red hoodie, red hat, black shoes, right? So then they found somebody, red hoodie, black shoes, whatever I just said. And then, so then what did the guy take, right? The 911 call was asking, well, he took my cell phone. And he describes the cell phone. They find the cell phone in that guy's pocket, right? It's an iPhone with a black case, right? Very typical. So that's level 3. That's still not enough to arrest yet. What they need is some type of confirmation ID. So then what they'll do is they'll detain that person for a certain amount of time. They'll bring the complainant, the person who made the call, to the scene to make an identification. Is this the person who you saw robbed you? And if they say yes, then now you're at level 4.
What happens if they can't say yes, but they're like, that's my iPhone?
Well, that would be the confirmation.
That's
Right.
okay.
Right.
And the funny thing is,
And they
actually,
would use that, yeah.
to a certain extent, let's say, for example, we're talking about an iPhone in someone's pocket. At level 3, they can't even search for the iPhone. They can't search for that. At level 3, it's not probable cause. Probable cause means they can arrest you and they can search you, right? But basically, at level, that's level 4. I mean, a probable cause is level 4. At level 4, that basically means they're gonna arrest you. They believe it's you to the level of probable cause, and they can search you because they're gonna arrest you. And they can also search you for proof of the crime, but they're already arresting you for. At level 3, which is just reasonable suspicion, they can only search you at that level if they have reasonable suspicion that you're armed and dangerous. And basically the reason why they allow that is because what if you have someone you suspect of being the armed robber, the burglar, or whatever it is? Just engaging with that person is dangerous in itself. Right. So you are allowed to search them for your own
safety.
protection.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you don't even know if that's the person you're supposed to actually be like given a hard time to. So that's why only in that situation can you search them. Right. If, let's say, for example, it's a fare jump, right? Right? You jump a fare on a train, right? I don't know. Okay, you looked at me. If it's a fare jump and you run and they're saying, hey, someone on this train or this track, and they find you, they can't search you because they have reasonable suspicion that you are the fare jumper. Whoever's gonna come is gonna confirm it, but until they confirm it, they have no reason to search you because you're not putting them at risk of harm, and there's no evidence on you that is worth violating your rights to not be searched until they confirm that you're the guy. You feel me?
Well, see, the problem is they just go right to 4.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
a lot of times,
I'm not telling you.
procedurally,
I'm not telling you how it
Right.
actually works. I'm telling you how the law works.
Right, yeah.
Now,
In practice,
to
they jump the
exemplify
floor a lot all the time.
this what you should understand is I'm going to tell a little hypo, right? And this is going to be a new segment that we will bring in whenever is necessary, called The Adventures of Gene and Jay. This is complete hypothetical, not real, did not happen.
So you're not Gene, right?
I am not Gene. My name is Eugene.
Gotcha.
So this is Adventures of Gene and Jay, and in this adventurous day, they were out celebrating someone's graduation. I think it's either a mutual acquaintance or Jay's girlfriend. It doesn't really matter because it's not a real story. And they're out celebrating in a bar, that was rented by Jay's girlfriend for her graduation. And at this event, it was an open bar Henny. So basically, unlimited Henny for free, right? So they're at this event and they're drinking unlimited Henny.
I was in this hypo, man.
It was a good, yeah, right? So Gene, that's all Gene needs. Gene doesn't need anything else. Unlimited Henny, why leave?
I like Gene.
Right? Gene's a good guy.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, despite this being an unlimited Henny event, Jay wanted to go outside to his car and drink some nips. And for anyone who doesn't know what a nip is,
I have no idea what a nip is.
Mr. Biggs, you know what a nip is? Tell Peter what's a nip.
A little both.
Yeah, you know about it.
Oh, like the airplane?
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
they call them, I don't know why they call them nips,
Why
but
do they?
Because
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, the shot. That's why.
yeah. So Jay wanted to go outside of this bar.
Jay left.
So he's leaving a bar that has unlimited Henny to get a nip in the car.
In the back of his trunk. Yes.
must be more than this in the nip in the back of that car.
Nah. I don't know what's wrong with
something else in
Jay.
the car.
Gene is very reasonable. Jay just.
Jay's not my
Jay-
people. I know this story ain't real, because that's. And
Jay
I'm not
just.
Jay.
Jay just
This is
wants
obviously a
to.
hypothetical.
Just wants to drink different alcohol in the back of his car. So, but Gene's a nice guy, so Gene goes with Jay to the back of the car, and they open the trunk and they're taking nips, right? Basically, a nip is a shot, so they're just chugging shots of shit that ain't Henny. For, I don't know why would anyone would do that, but that's what they're doing. And they're taking nips, and then Gene has a nip in his hand, and he's drinking a nip, and he bloop bloop bloop. Cops roll up, right?
Now
And
the shit is in your hand?
while he's chugging on a nip, so Gene puts the nip in his pocket, right? Cops roll out. They must have been training because it was like 3 or 4 of them, and they roll out the car, right? So now let's apply what we learned. Depending on what they saw, they're like and what's the crime? Public intoxication, right? Or public consumption of
Open
alcohol.
container.
Open container.
Yeah.
So depending on what they saw, they had various levels. So they approach Gene and Jay, and they're like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" Gene goes, "Nothing," right? Because like, what did I say at the beginning? You have no requirement to speak to the cops. Now, what Gene should have said was nothing. He should have said nothing, but it's very hard to say nothing because there's a social dynamic to speech, right? If someone asks you questions, you want to give them an answer. You're not required to say anything to the police except name, address, destination, and potentially date of
It's like
birth. If
what
it's
Peter said, basically. It's kind of weird that someone wouldn't answer a normal question. Hey, what are you doing? You're just sitting there, just not saying anything.
So Gene said nothing. He says, "I don't think," and the cop goes, "I don't think you're doing nothing." I say, "Okay, well, I'm doing nothing." He's like, "I think you're drinking something." Gene goes, I don't know what you're talking about. Now, obviously, Gene wears tight pants, and nips are very distinctive sized bottles. So Gene has the bottle in his pocket. It's in his pocket, right? So Gene's like, "We're doing nothing." He's like, "I think you're drinking something. I don't know what you're talking about, officer." He goes, No. I think you're drinking something. I can see the bottle right there in your pocket." Gene goes, I don't know what you're talking about.
That's not a bottle.
No. Gene,
No, see?
Gene is trying
You
to.
gotta be very careful.
Gene just said, "I don't know what you're talking about, officer." Now they're pointing at a nip bottle in Gene's pocket, right? And Gene's like, "I don't know what you're talking about, officer." And at that point, Jay jumps in and goes, "Well, what did you see, officer?" And he's like, "I saw him drinking a bottle." And then Jay goes, "Well, what kind of bottle did you see him drinking?" "I'm not sure." Then Jay goes, "Well, it sounds like you don't have anything, officer." Right? Because at the end of the day, whatever this bottle-shaped object in Gene's pocket looks like, that's not enough to issue a summons. That's not enough for anything. All that officer basically had was he saw someone drinking something that may have looked like something.
Which is
That's-
not an objective, credible reason. Because
Yeah.
you can drink a water bottle.
Well, no, I mean
You can drink
that
a
was
Coke
objective,
bottle,
credible reason to
right?
get out of his car and approach us.
Nah.
Right.
Somebody drinking something?
Well,
Who
I
cares?
mean,
Like, who cares?
no,
Like,
it's
the thing is,
it's somebody drinking
you have
something.
nothing better to do than
It's something. It's no. I mean, no. This story is not meant to say that they were doing their job, right? He thought that Gene was drinking an alcoholic beverage, and he got out his car to investigate. But at the end of the day, based on that counter, he was not able to substantiate his suspicion, and his suspicion in that encounter was very low, right?
Maybe level 1.
He didn't even bother to ask me to. He didn't even bother to ask Gene to empty his pockets, because at level 1, you're not even capable of asking that question. And what did Jay do? He basically said, "What did you see?" And he, in that moment, placed himself in the box. He did not see anything. So Gene then responded, "Well, if you didn't see anything, that doesn't mean you have anything. So you should get back in your car and go upon your way." And them being good cops, they got in their car and went about their way. Now,
And then you went back in and had some Hennessy.
You should have.
Gene did. But what's the point of that? What's the point of this hypothetical? The point of the hypothetical is that there are rules governing these interactions, right?
Yeah.
Right? In that moment, Gene could have panicked and go, "I'm sorry, officer. I got a nip in my
Could
pocket."
have went a
Right,
different way.
It could have went that way. It could have went a lot of times. Cops know that they can search if they feel that their safety's at risk. So somebody might put their hands in their pockets.
Yeah.
They might start fidgeting and stuff. It's like, whoa, what are you doing? No, don't keep your hands in your pockets. Then maybe now he has level 2, and he can do a brief pat down, and then he might feel the nip in
That's
his pocket.
level 3.
You know, well, level 3. Yeah,
Level
exactly.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So
See,
that's how
a
they
great-
jump. Like you were saying, like they often jump to level 4. Like that's how they get there. Because based on your movements, based on what you say.
That's a great neutral way to not even throw cops under the bus. But they're
Right.
Look, being a cop is a very hard job. They're
Right.
approaching people randomly. They don't know what they're hitting for.
Right.
And if you start acting crazy, you start putting your hands in your pockets, you're gonna give them enough
Right.
to feel concerned, right? Obviously, Gene knew what the fuck he was doing, so Gene was like, "I got nothing in my pockets, officer."
Yeah.
I think we're getting close to the end. Is there anything, Mr. Biggs? Thank you for being on. Is there anything you want to
Pleasure,
say?
man. This is I like this, man. This is something that's needed, you know, especially when you talk about criminal law aspects of things. You know, people that black and brown people just get thrown into these situations, and something like this will enhance, let the people know, like, hey, you violated my rights, man. I was just listening to lawyers and swag. Y'all not doing this right.
FYI, it's not legal advice.
Yeah. It's on the website.
It's
For
not
informational
website, not
purposes
legal
only.
Just
advice.
for
But,
information.
not a bad place to start.
Not a bad place to start. Good line.
Ducking and ducking these lunches, I'm brunches, these crunching these numbers, just something I'm hunting. The IRS coming, so don't be caught fronting. If there's something you should know, then it's just one thing. If it's ordinary and necessary, then it's less scary when it comes to February. If you spending it, then deduct it. Make sure you don't blow it on the fuck shit. You bought brand new merch, deduct that shit. You got 1,000 t-shirts, deduct that shit. Bought a new camera, deduct that shit. Flew to Alabama, deduct that shit. Bought a new office, deduct that shit. Pay insurance on shit, deduct that shit. From the simplest business interest to the more complex shit.
Deduct it. Deduct that shit. Deduct it. Deduct that shit. Deduct it. Deduct that shit.